Welcome to A Table in a Tavern, your community RPG podcast. Every episode, we'll explore the depths of immersive storytelling, character creation, and mechanics that make TTRPGs so captivating. Whether you're a dungeon master, a player, or just a curious listener, there's a seat for you at our table. So grab your ale, pull up a chair, and let's embark on this journey together. Welcome to the Tavern. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to A Table in a Tavern podcast. I am GM Keegan, and as always, my co-host DM Knock, and our special veteran GM guest, Amy. Today's topic, we're going to discuss Quantum Ogre, tool or shenanigan. Maybe that's a phrase you never heard before. Many GMs may have used it and didn't realize it had a name, and many players may have seen it and didn't realize it had a controversial debate and term about it. Knock, what's your understanding of what the Quantum Ogre is?
All right, so look, when you told me we were going to talk about this like weeks ago, the first thing I did was go through every single monster manual, bestiary, book, everything that I had. I'm trying to find a damn Quantum Ogre, and I couldn't find one, so I gave up. I have no idea what you're even talking about.
For those that are uninitiated with the exact term, Quantum Ogre, it really has to do with player agency. The example that is used most often is players come upon two paths. They can go down the one path that goes along the river, and then they can go the other path along the mountain. And they hear about this dangers that could be on either path. But you and as GM, you're like, I spent a lot of time, and I think it's going to be an exciting encounter if they fight this specific ogre. And the players are choosing in-game for these various reasons. So they have agency and say, we take this path. And you as the GM say, perfect, you're still going to run into the ogre. You don't tell them, but they still will have the encounter. The players are ignorant, and that's where the controversy comes in, because their choice didn't matter really in that moment. But it's used quite often. Do you use that Quantum Ogre in your games?
Who are you asking on this now?
I think
I know Knock has some very strong opinions on this.
No, you know what?
I've gotta know.
I'm gonna
We've been
boil it
hyping this
down.
up before the recording. I need to know his opinion.
No, I'm gonna boil it down to it's a plot device, right? So here we are. We're playing a game. As a DM, I'm helping tell a story, and I will absolutely throw a Quantum Ogre down when I need to herd the cats, so to speak, get them back on track. Because at the end of the day, if I'm not storytelling, and we all know the rules to the game, why is there even a DM? So I think it's a plot device, and I think it's perfectly okay. I don't think that there's a problem at all with it. I will say that, if you're just going to slap around random things that don't make sense with every twist and turn, yeah, then you probably have a problem and you're not ready to be a DM. When I thought about the Quantum Ogre and how it started and all that stuff, the only thing I can think of is it had to have been a bunch of internet Karens that just started complaining about their game, and they said, man, this such and such happened, and it shouldn't have because it doesn't make sense. And then they're like, oh, you know what? I bet you that no matter where we went, we were going to run into that blasted ogre. And it just spiraled out of control from that. There are some do's and don'ts of DMing. You should never tell the players what you have behind the screen. You should never tell the players what they missed. You should never tell the players this is what would have happened if. And if you never do that, a Quantum Ogre doesn't exist.
100% yes. 100% yes. I cannot agree more. Quantum Ogre as a trolley problem, as a idea, is a failure. GMing is a magic show, and your players are the audience. A good Quantum Ogre does not exist because it is not noticed. A good quantum ogre does not exist. There is no such thing as a quantum ogre, essentially. The only time a quantum ogre can ever really be noticed is if you have revealed your hand to the players. You have told them the magic trick. The fact that, like, oh yeah, regardless of which path you were going to take, you were going to run into an ogre. And I've heard arguments of people saying, like, oh, it's fine once or twice, but, like, your players will begin to tell, like, they can always smell it. In my, like, 10 plus years of game mastering, if you are doing your job right, no, they do not. There is something else fundamentally wrong with what you are doing that makes the quantum ogre appear. I refuse to believe it is a tool, because that is just how you game master, really. You develop encounters for your players. And even that, like, the quantum ogre itself is so, like, built in of, like, the concept that you gave us, Keegan. The fact that, like, you have two paths. One goes down the river. You fight an ogre. Oh, you go down the mountain path. You fight an ogre. Even that is, like, ignoring those two encounters would be wildly different encounters from one another. For example, like, the mountain path, like, it's like completely ignoring all of the interesting aspects about that. Like, the mountain path might be narrow, and, like, it's such a big creature, it takes up the whole path, so you can't, like, flank it. Or maybe the party comes up with a great idea, bring down the side of the mountain, topple it down the side, down the cliff. That's really interesting. Or if you're in the river, it's a wide open area, you can get around the ogre. Like, the second you start adding just the fundamentals of running an encounter, like, in my opinion, a quantum ogre, like, fails as a fault, I guess you could say. Like, people's complaints against the quantum ogre, like, the second you actually start running the system, and if you're doing it correctly, those faults do not exist.
Okay, so what we're hearing is two strongly in favor of use of the thing that's has been actually around longer than the name has. This way of GMing, designing, and so forth. That you're both in favor of it. So I guess the question.
I watched some very aggravating videos yesterday about who were like who were
I didn't think you would be.
Ogre.
I didn't think you'd be on my side there, Amy. I'll be honest.
So this begs a question.
100% I'm on your side on this.
This begs a question: Is the magic now more important than player choice?
Why is that the question?
Because if this is such a positive thing,
why are you saying that like it's a one or the other game?
We're taking away choice. We have to be honest. We're taking away choice in that moment. Player agency is irrelevant at that point.
So here's the thing about this, though: are we talking as DMs or are we talking as players? Because it's two different sides of the DM screen, right? You have the players that can speculate, but they should never know. And then you have the DMs that, again, if you're revealing what you're doing, then you're creating an issue yourself. The players will never know they didn't have agency. If the mechanic was there, or not the mechanic, whatever you want to call it, the plot device is what I call it. If the plot device is there for a purpose, then it's there for a purpose. If it's to reveal the grand destiny of a character, no matter which path they go, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, it doesn't matter. And at some point, they're all going to funnel into this one plot device. Then so be it. That's part of storytelling. If we're not storytelling, then there's no there's no use of quantum ogres.
100%. Keegan, I believe you were going to be basically had set yourself up to be referee for this potential argument that has turned into two people absolutely agreeing with each other. What's your opinion on this?
Oh, here we go.
So it comes down to for me. So it comes down to is like player agency only as valuable as far as they can tell they have it, and as long as they're smiling, ignorance is bliss. I guess that's like I'm achieving something. I'm achieving an enjoyable table. I'm patting myself on the back at that moment. that I succeeded as a GM because all my players, in all their ignorance, don't know what they don't know. And what they don't know is they aren't having choice. They have no agency. Or they have very, very little. Inconsequential, I guess you can say. Agency. Does that make me a success? You could argue yes. Because they keep coming back week after week thinking that was amazing. Oh, that was great. Even though we just robbed them. I just took away their agency in that moment.
Why do you care so much about their agency? You're making it sound like we do that
Like
with
some
every
sort of
single
holy
choice.
grail. Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's every single choice they have we crap on, but that's not the truth.
Well,
it's only, like I said, plot device with purpose.
Okay, expand on that. Expand on what is a plot device with purpose.
Right. Okay.
Like,
So
kind of like break that down.
Sure. As someone that has only done homebrew, so I don't know what it would look like in adventure modules or anything like that, but I'm sure they have their own as well. But you take, okay, look, so we have, if I'm not running a completely open world campaign, I'm not running free spirits, do whatever you want. I have an overarching story, right? I, at some point, need them to discover a problem, whatever that problem is. I can put that, if I'm I don't want to say a crappy writer, but if I'm a writer where I need to introduce this NPC is the key to unlocking the start of this story arc. That NPC could be anything, anywhere. That's my Quantum Ogre. So they think that they're going wherever they want to go, which is fine. They can think that. But they're going to run into this NPC. They're going to run into this NPC that needs to be rescued and whatever the encounter is that I design. That is a plot device. I need them to talk to that person, or the MacGuffin item, right, which is most commonly known in the movie industry. You got to have this one item or this one thing that everything is revolving around. Well, they got to get introduced to that somehow. So you pick and choose. They don't get to pick and choose. It's not their story that they're writing. It's yours.
But Narc, what if I don't want to go to Barovia?
Right. Then I guess you're not playing.
I guess you're not playing in this. You're not playing in this adventure that we all agreed to play in.
So, are we just saying that Quantum Ogre is just another facet of railroading, and railroading makes games better?
Interesting way of phrasing it.
I can't say that it makes it better, because that depends on the story and people's enjoyment, right? That's an individual, that's subjective. But I will say that Quantum Ogring progresses to the desired effect.
Okay, what is that effect, though, by the way? Oh, sorry, go on.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I'm not sure how properly to describe this. Of like Quantum Ogre eventually leads into railroading, I guess is the argument there. But like the same argument could be made of like a good railroad isn't noticed.
So back to being a magician, as long as we hide the walls and the rails and the ogre, as long as
is that unseen. Not what we do? Is that not the story? Are we not making them believe that they are literally fighting dragons?
And it's not all the time either, right? Like, we go back to that example of the river and the mountains. So you have your party. They are presented with choices A and B, but both choices lead to C, no matter what. That's fine. And that could be where that ends. C now branches out to D, E, F, G, H, I, whatever. So at some point, railroading or carrot on a sticking is still something that is it's a mechanic, I guess, that every story writer uses I've been using the term a lot lately, herding cats, but basically getting everyone back on the same page.
Oh boy, yeah. It's we saw like if people are calling it out as a quantum ogre, and I said this before, that there is a more fundamental issue happening at play here. As a GM, it is your job to be observant. Now, using the magician metaphor again, a magician is very, very observant to the audience that they are playing for. If you've ever seen anyone who does magic tricks with cards in particular, they are doing their movements towards that person who is watching, hiding all of the actual secret, like the actual magic behind those movements.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Yeah,
for a
the long pause. I was like,
second.
this is dramatic
Yes.
pause.
This is a dramatic pause. I completely lost it.
Okay, so I think when we kind of like follow it though, some may say then, okay, we're doing a great job hiding the rails, and they don't know that the quantum ogre exists, and we're herding the cats in the right direction, and they're enjoying themselves the whole time.
Yep.
Then why have players? Why not just write the book? Because it could be just as engaging for them to read it.
Well, do you want to read the book or do you want to experience the book?
Likewise?
Is that I asked in the beginning?
Okay.
If we're
why
not
don't you watch a playthrough of a game instead?
And if we don't want
of like playing it yourself,
if we don't want to tell the story as DMs, Keegan, you know the rules to D&D. Amy, you do as well. I do as well. Let's just make characters and play. We can do whatever we want. There's no story.
Well, I think that analogy only can go so far, because if you're like, well, would you want to play the story? In the end,
well, do we want to give full agency or what?
If they have no choice but to blow up the Death Star, right? And in the end, the ring, it will go back to Mordor, no matter what, 100%. Well, you're just reading a book. Where does the agency come from? Where's the agency left, I guess, for the players? Because we want them to have fun. We're GMing for a reason, because we enjoy this aspect of it. We want to do this thing called role-playing games. So where does the player come in if we, despite being the greatest magicians in the world, have hidden the fact that they have no agency? Where would their agency be left, or does it even matter at this point?
That it comes down to the observation. So I run a lot of homebrew games aside from this one module that I'm now running, and even then I'm still using the techniques. It is observing your players, and seeing where they want to go, what they're currently thinking. Hey, we found this information from the villain, but I know a guy in this completely different area who happens to be connected to that. And you know in advance the kind of players you have. You are tailoring your games to those sorts of players. Do you consider that to be taking away their player agency, when in reality they're kind of deciding where the story is flowing already?
This is okay. So we have not asked our audience to participate in any of our podcasts before, but this is one that I would absolutely love to hear the opinions of, both players and DMs and GMs and whatever, even people that don't play, that just kind of, maybe they just have been observing games. And
they've just heard of this little problem we got here.
Right. I would love to hear their thoughts on that stuff. Please comment on this. Is it damning as a player to not know that you don't have player agency, or is it okay to just go along for the ride?
For me personally, I feel like it is if you feel like you don't have player agency, then the GM has failed.
As long as we hide the fact. However, there's a flip side to this, is we can do these things called social contracts. I think a lot of people have heard that way more than they've heard of Quantum Ogre. To the point that
you agreed to go to Barovia, guys.
Yes, people have this that's the etiquette is they're not grabbing my hook, aka I'm putting something in front of players they should engage with, and people generally will argue that's good player etiquette. So is good player etiquette also to ignore that, there's rails, there's quantum ogring, there's all these other things that take away my agency, but we need to move it along to interact with the next set piece or interesting thing and so forth? Is that just part of the agreement that players are like, yeah, I know I'm getting things removed from me, but it's okay. I still find my enjoyment in whatever creation is thrown in my lap.
That comes
And if
back
you're-
to the assumption
sorry.
that they know. It's pure speculation, no matter how you deal with it, until you reveal your hand. They can speculate all they want about, and when I say they, I'm talking about players. They can speculate all they want about, oh, is this how it should have gone? What could have happened this way? All that sort of stuff. And the only way they're going to come back to loss of any agency is if, when they ask you directly or you reveal something that you shouldn't, and you say anything other than a neutral, I don't know. It might have been something different. Who knows? If you don't play that card,
A magician never reveals the trick. Is that what it is?
yeah, basically, yeah.
We're all magicians. So.
So as long as the distraction is more magnificent enough and spectacular enough, then does it really matter what tool, trick, or anything that we use? Because they want to just sit down and imagine the stuff that we feed them.
Amy
Are
was.
you not entertained?
Yeah, Amy hit. I think Amy's got the best analogy here, and that's the magician thing. If you've ever gone to a magic show, yes, you are struck in awe with all the performances, the stunts, the pyrotechnics, all the whole flashy bits, everything. Are you curious about how they did that? Absolutely. Do you ever find out? No, you don't.
But there is something to say. When you go to a show and you see a magician, you know you're being tricked. When a player comes down, do you think they have the same mentality of, I am going to be tricked into losing my agency, but that's okay? Like, do you think they agree to the same thing?
I certainly know I'm going to Barovia, yes.
I think some of them actually might think that. I think the players that are metagamers, rules lawyers, those ones will be more notorious towards thinking that way. I think the people that are there to have a good time, to just more or less hang out, or the ones that care more about story, and they want to know, they're interested in what you wrote up. I think those ones are not going to have a problem with it.
Yes. No, 100% with that.
So it's just going to be a player understanding that, yes, I'm going to be fed something, and whatever it is, that's the thing we're going to do. I don't have to have 100% agency.
If you feel like you don't have enough agency in your game, that is something you should be discussing with your GM. It could be very well you are not a fit for that type of game.
That, I think, is the point of everything.
Yes.
Because you asked me earlier, and I've been dancing around, playing devil's advocate, or just
yes, because I was very
acknowledging
interested in this because I know you are a very open world. The players decide everything they go down, and I'm like, I feel like asking the question about the quantum ogre would be a much more interesting question towards you as opposed to me, who is much more story driven, I guess you could say. I have a tale that I wish to tell, and you guys may decide how it plays out. You, on the other hand, have a world.
I will
and
say,
you're just playing it.
I will say,
tell us.
I will say that it completely depends on the game. I will run an open world, and this is not a new concept. It's been going around since the dawn of time. If you go back to even the old, back in the 70s, it was very, what are you doing next? Everything grows out of player decision. The world is growing. One of the most common tips given is start with a town and a dungeon. And the reason they said that is you don't need to have the whole world because you don't know what your players are going to do. And when they said they don't know what they do, they literally say, I don't know where the game's going because I don't know what my players are going to do. And if they say we have one dungeon and go the opposite direction, then that's fine. And that was a concept that's been around for decades. And when I build the giant grand open world sandbox, there is no rails, there is no quantum ogre. All of that is completely cast into like a fiery furnace. It's never to be seen. However, I think there's extreme value in it in a story-driven game. When I build this giant, I'm like, I want a story arc, and this is the theme and what we're going to go through. Then yes, it's plotted out. And when it's plotted out, I am hoping to be the best magician. Have I hidden the rails well enough? They never see the ogre. They think, oh my word, this is exactly random and it makes sense. I'm terrified of what's going to happen next. And it's completely plotted out. I succeed when they see nothing. I am the magician they walk away with and they didn't know they went to a magic show. I am succeeding in those moments.
They will go ahead and tell great tales of how they slew an ogre today.
Yes. They're like this random amazing arc. And I'm like, yes, this was completely designed ahead of time. I think there's extreme value in having it in a story-based game, which I think most promoted games nowadays for the past 10 years are plot-driven games. The plot is going to push events because generally speaking, and I know everybody can have an example and say, Keegan, you're wrong. Generally speaking, most people, because they speak in terms of adventure and quests and being heroes. If you say that, you are following a story. The player is not pushing things forward. The events are being thrusted upon the heroes, and that's pushing them along. And they're being swept down the river, and they're going to go through a fun house of amazing, spectacular set pieces. It is going to be railroaded so hard. And that's okay. We have to refine our skills and be the best magician at the table.
I have no idea what a purely open world game would even look like.
Interesting.
All I can think of is murder hobos all over the place. Somebody's going to adopt a cat, and then everything's going to be revolving around that. Some person's going to try to create a shop and sell shoes that they find off of dead bandits or something. I see more problems than potential with purely open world, total free agency type of game.
Obviously, that's where the social contract comes into things again, because you can have a totally free open world, Keegan said, he started with a town and a dungeon, and my very first homebrew was basically that. Oh my god, I just remember, Keegan, you were in that. You were one of my players.
What do you mean?
Oh no,
that was random and open and amazing, and it went.
Yeah, it was a haunted
plot.
lighthouse. It was a haunted lighthouse. Oh my god. With the social contract, your players, if they are following the contract, they want to try and stick together. That's just kind of how these games are. Players want to try and stick together. You don't split the party. It's one of the fundamental rules that we teach people, and even regardless of system, that pretty much holds up usually.
Hold on.
Which by the way,
what is a social contract? Because I'll be honest, I don't get out much, dude. When I play D&D, I play at a table with real people.
We're going to need another podcast for this.
So I don't get on the internet and look for reasons why my game is wrong, unlike Keegan. So what is a social contract? Explain that to me.
All right. So the social contract is something that even still applies to you, for example, with your homebrew game, with your in-house games that you run with people that you have played with this for a long time, from my understanding. It's, I guess, the a good example I can give of an example of the social contract is, you don't talk during a movie in the movie theater, do you? You don't want to be etiquette? That kind of. It's basically etiquette, yeah. It is.
It's 2024. We put labels on everything, and social contract is what it is, or contract.
Yes, it is. Okay. It is a combination of etiquette and it's etiquette at the game table. More focused on
okay,
the reason why we're all here playing.
Okay, I'm gonna
It's
take
the whole we're all going to Barovia because that's the module we bought. It's the
Yeah.
the agreements that you don't split the party. That's just kind of social etiquette. You don't run off to go do your own thing because that's rude to the other players.
I'm gonna sit in Keegan's seat for just 5 seconds.
It's a
By all
big
means.
warm chair. Go on, take the throne.
Oh my god, warmed it up for me. Thank you.
It is a
Okay.
warm chair.
Social contract. Does that take away player agency?
Yes, to a
Wonderful.
degree. To a degree, everything does.
100%, yes.
To a
Yeah.
degree, everything does, because if you want to do your own thing, and I mean just humans in general,
Right.
you can. And there's consequences as soon as you do it next to another human. You're like, I like to just randomly wave a gun about and shoot it. Like, that's fine by
I wanna
yourself.
backstab this
I
player.
do it in the middle of a forest. The consequences are low. I do that in the middle of New York. Consequences are high. It doesn't matter if your choice. It's your choice. You have complete freedom. You have consequences. In a game, we are saying within the rules, the structure of this theme, tone, whatever, here are the things that are expected of all of us. And that's the social contract. And part of that, I also believe, is what Amy's been saying. We all go to Barovia. We all decide this is the thing we're going to play. And that's okay. And when people start leaving it, then you're breaking it.
Like, these are the sorts of things that, like, the social contract is not usually said, but it's the sort of things that you'd bring up in a session 0 kind of thing. Those are additions to the social contract, I guess you could say.
For instance, I think another one is, what if you're like, I want to make a foul-mouthed, just terrible sailor guy. And you're like, that's cool, but this is going to be a very PG family game.
Maybe you want to play that character in a different game.
Zero
or
blood,
perhaps this
zero
game isn't
anything. Yeah,
for you.
right?
Yeah.
So, and you'd be like, but that literally would be taking away agency. Their choice. They can't make choice. Their choice is, I have to be hyper-friendly. I have to be a hero. Maybe you can't ever play a villain in a game. You're like, this is heroes only. You're like, oh. Yeah. So that is, you now just took a choice away. Just like the road has been taken away from the ogre.
So how?
Yeah, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. People who put like player agency is the golden child that you must not ever harm.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was going to get at. I was building up to it, and you stole my thunder, Amy.
I stole it.
God dang it! So Keegan, you put
Yeah.
it sounds like, because you're giving a lot of negative connotations to like the Quantum Ogre and all these other things we've been talking about today. Where do you put player agency on the grand scale of everything?
I love the Quantum Ogre. It's amazing. Player agency matters as much as necessary for the type of game I'm running. If I'm doing an open world sandbox, it's very high because I need them to get off their butts and be very proactive. If we're doing a plot-driven game, well, that means they need to react to my plot, which means they need to be proactive, but at the very least, be very reactive. So their agency is diminished in those moments to facilitate the style of the game, aka this heavy plot-driven game.
So you don't care much about player agency.
I care as far as the game demands
like
it. And if it demands less, if it demands less, I will take less. If it demands more, I will demand more.
I'm not talking. Yeah. I think you get what I'm asking, but I don't think you're answering it. You don't care what your players think about player agency, correct?
In the grand scheme of things, outside of the table, no.
All three of us are one!
We have united peace on this earth.
As we hold hands,
Suck it, players!
and skip along, I think the final words we're just going to ask Amy that took the thunder from Knock.
What?
What is your... You're also going to steal the final thoughts. What is your final thought? What is your view on this whole Quantum Ogre controversy?
Guys, don't take it so seriously. Like, do not think that this is a problem. If your players are calling out that there's some sort of Quantum Ogre or something like that, there is something more fundamental going on wrong with your game. It is not about that encounter. It's about how you're dealing with that encounter. if the players feel like their choices do not matter, there is something else going on here. Look into that.
With with a wise advice that you all need to seek counseling if you get too heated over this. I am GM Gigan, my co-host DM Knock, and the veteran GM that had our final words. Amy, thank you for joining us.
A pleasure as always, Keegan.
Have a good night.
Quantum Ogre should exist.
Bye.
Thank you, community, for listening. Join RollNet's Discord now to continue the discussion with other GMs, DMs, and players about tonight's topic. Come back next time, where there's always a seat waiting for you at a table in a tavern.